We're starting on page 65. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nahivina
Navchin ben yom uben laila. Baruch atah Adonai Adonai
Shasani b'tzalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shasani ben chorin.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sokef kifufim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka aretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali kol tzorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam panechin metzadik alver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. I'm sorry. Oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'ayef koach.
U'tneinu hayom chol yom Chanukah
U'tneinu chayom l'chon chedel chesed u'rachamim b'nech v'nei koroinu v'tigma leinu chasidim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai goel chasidim tovim le'amo
Mo
Yisrael.
Yisrael. 60.
Ashreinu matov, halkeinu manayim goreleinu vayirushatenu. Ashreinu shanachnu masignim umarvim erev boker b'chomim b'bayim b'chol yom.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Kadesh Shimcha Makisheh Shemecha V'Kadesh Shecho V'Olamecha V'Yishuach Tarim B'Tagvia Karneinu Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh Shimcha Barabim. Yiritzom Lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohavoteinu Shetitan Alkeinu B'Tortecha V'Damidal Shal Aaron HaKohen Ochev Shalom Dodei Shalom Ochev Et Habriot Ukarban LeTorah. Continue on page 72. Yom Yom Shabbat Kodesh.
Magadlu Masechaya Mehoyom Mashevotecha Ay day day Shayim
Ordinum Veseva the Shenim Ranadim you Ligi Kirasharonai to read
the love Page 81. Moshe Chanukah Tabayin Ledo. Adonai Ekra El Adonai El Hanan Elecha Adonai Ekra El Adonai El Hanan Shema Adonai Baruch Shamar's page 83. Please rise.
Baruch She'amar v'yayolam.
Baruch
Baruch Oseh v'Hireshit.
Baruch Shemo.
Baruch Omer v'Hiyoseh.
Baruch
Baruch Gozer U'Kayim.
Baruch Shemo.
Baruch Mechem al haaretz.
Baruch
Baruch Mechem l'habiot.
Baruch Shemo.
Baruch Misalem Sakarto Lireah.
Baruch
Baruch Elahad v'Kayam LaNetzach.
Baruch Shemo.
Baruch Podeu Matzil.
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Yachid Helm Melchbash Unfar Adei Adshvo Hagadol Baruch Adonai Melech Mechlal
Batish Bachot, page 90, page 90. Yosef
Ibnehu imo anochi betzara achatzehu v'akabdehu orachemim aspiechu v'yarechu v'shuti orachemim aspiechu v'yarechu
Yeshuati, page 92. Please rise.
Adonai ki
Tov gilei olam chasdo dulei
Elohim
no kilei olam chasdo
Adonai
Adonim kilei olam chasdo Kilei olam chasto Bidvuna kilei olam chasto
Alamayim
Kilei olam chasto
Seorim Gedolim
Kilei olam chasto
Shemesh Memshelet
Bayom Kilei olam chasto Kilei olam olam chasto.
Mechei Mitzrayim.
B'choreihem kilei olam chasto. Ve'yotzei
Yisrael
Yisrael mitocham kilei olam chasto. Ve'yotzei Mizron etiyah kilei olam chasto.
Legozer Yamsu.
Ligzarim ho kilei olam chasto.
Yisrael
Mitocho kilei olam chasto. V'nei Avro v'chelo Yamsuf kilei olam chasto.
Molech Amo Bamidbar.
Kilei olam chasto.
Melachim Gedolim.
Hey kilei olam chasto.
Melachim Adirim.
Kilei olam chasto.
Sichon
Melech ha'emori kilei olam chasto.
Ulog Melech Habashan.
Kilei olam chasto. V'nat vatzam lenachala. Kilei olam chasto. Kilei olam chasto. Shebishifleinu zachar lanu. Kilei olam chasto. Yisrikenu mitzarenu. Kilei olam chasto. Noten lechem lechol basar. Kilei olam chasto.
El Hashamayim.
Shamayim kilei olam chasto. Hey 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 Page 96. Hoyalu chasela Hashem shekachalo Hashem
Tov Adonai lecho. Vod machutecha. Machut machut kol alamim. Adonai daber pi viverach kol basoshin kochel elam ba'ed v'nachnu v'racham mitaved olam.
Hallelujah. Page 100.
Hallelujah bikocho.
Hallelujah birki Yahuza. Hallelujah big borotav. Hallelujah rob gulo. Hallelujah take a shofar. Hallelujah benevel bechinor. Hallelujah tofu machol. Hallelujah ninim ve'urab. Hallelujah tzil tzlei Hallelujah tzil tzlei truah. Hallelujah. Nishmat is on page 104.
Yai dai 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 dai. Hi yai 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 yai. Hi yai 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 yai. Hi yai yai yai
קודם מציל ומפרנס ומלחם בכל עת, ותוקן לנו מלך אל עתה. Today, so I'll share a very short one. This is Wave by Langston Hughes. Wave of sorrow, do not drown me now. I see the island still ahead somehow. I see the island and its sands are fair. Wave of sorrow, take me there.
Kadosh Shemo Tzadikim Titbarach Uvashon Chasidim Tedromam Uvakerev Kadoshim
Titkadash Uvmakalot Ribivot Amcha Beit Yisrael
Shekei Chova Kalei Tzurim Levanecha Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, לחלץ על כל דברי שירות בתשבחות, דוד בן ישי,
עבדך משיחך, page 106,
שמך
לעד מלכנו,
ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול תשבחות אל ההודות הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך אלוקי העולמים.
If we could sing a nigun by the time we're done. It's like waiting for a parking spot. You know, the person's like, when are they going to pull out? All right. I'm going to invite them in. Yeah. Oh, really? Who is it? Who is it? Oh. Hey! Number 10, Sequoia. Amen. Amen. Page 107. Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Voed. Baruch Adonai Mechalam. Yotzer Or Uvorecho.
Hakol Yoduch.
Hakol Yoduch Hakol Yishabchucha.
And Kadosh Adonai. Shabbat
Vien Zulat Chamalkenu L'chaye Ha'olam Haba Efes Biltecha Gorleinu Limot HaMashiach Vien Do Melech HaMoshiach Gat HaMetim El Adon Al Kol HaMasim Baruch Umvorach Befi Kol Neshama Gadlo v'tuvo malei olam da'atu tfuna sovevimoto hamigal chayotago v'nedar b'chabod al merkava haya zechutu mishor lifnei chisa chesed v'rachamim michibono chesed v'rachamim l'nei kibodo Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu Yitzaram b'dad uvina uvaskel Koach ugvura natan bahem Eliot moshlim bekerev tevel Elohim ziv umvikim noga Nahezivam bechol ha'olam Mechim b'tzeitam v'sasim be'oham Osim be'hema ha'retzon konayim V'chavod nodnim lishmot Sala verina lezecher malchuto Kara l'shemesh v'yizra Achora v'hidkin zorat alvana Sheva machnot nimlo Kol tzeva maharoma hayati Eferet redu gedula Serafim leofanim v'chayot hakodesh Page 109.
Kulam ahovim, kulam berurim, kulam giborim, kulam osim bi'ema u'v'yira retzon konam, v'kulam potchim et pihem, b'kedusha u'v'torah, b'shira u'v'zimra, barchim u'shavachim u'mfarim u'maritzim u'makdishim,
וממליכים השם על המלך הגדול הקדוש
הקדושו וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים ברשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח ושפה ברורה ונעימה קדושה כולם כי אחד אומרים באומרים ביראה קדוש קדוש
קדוש קדוש אדוני צבאות מלך כל הארץ לכבודו
אופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנסים למצרפים למתם משבחים ואומרים
ברוך יבוא אדוני
ברוך
ממקומו
כבוד אדוני ממקומו אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולם נראה לאורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות אהבה רבה
אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ותרח עמלת עלינו אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו תלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו תלמדנו אבינו אב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה
Yavieinu l'shalom me'avar k'fot ha'aretz v'tolichenu k'mimil etzenu ki al poel Yeshuat ata uvana v'karta m'kol am v'lashon v'kerevtanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet lahodot l'cha u'liachetcha b'yahava Baruch ata Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael b'yahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Adonai Elechem
Page 113.
דור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים וחיסון נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיים
קיים
אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו יוצרנו צור ישועתנו פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך אין אלוהים
זולתך עזרת אבותינו אתה ומעולם
וידידים הבאת וחסום עליהם זרעיהם.
In a moment, we'll begin the silent the Amidah together on page 115. Please remember, when we continue silently, to include both the additions for Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat Hanukkah.
רם וניסה, גדול ונורא, משפיל גאים, מגביה שפלים, מוציא אסירים, ופודה ענפים, ועוזר דלים. יונה לעמו, ויונה לעמו, בשבתם אליו. תהילות, הלליות, ומבורך, משה, בני ישראל, חנו שירה. בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם,
כמוך בהלים אדוני הוא עמי, כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה שירה חדשה, שברכו גאולים לשמך, על צבת הים, כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, גומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדי חנונך יהודה בישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
ברוך
ברוך אתה אדוני
Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Hoseh Ufoked U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Voked Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechai Metim Atah Rab Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Metim B'Rachamim Rabim, Tomech Noflim B'Rofei Cholim, Matir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bahal Gevurot Umido Mehelach Melech Mimit Umechayehu Masliach Yeshua
Baruch Atah Adonai V'chayei hametim. Nikadesh et Shimcha
Ba'olam Kishem Shemakdishim Oto Bishmei Maharom Kakatu Ahalyad Nevi'echa V'Karazel Zeve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzeva'ot Melachol Haaretz Kevodo Az B'kol Rash Gadol Adir V'chazak Mashmim Kol Minasim Le'umat Sarafim Le'umat Am Baruch Yom Meheru Baruch Yom
Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkom Malkeinu Tofeya V'Timloch Aleinu Ki Mechakim
Tidgadash B'toch Yerushalayim Ircha Ledor Vador Lenetzach Netzach Imveinenu Tirena Malchutecha Kadavar Ha'amor V'shirei Kadavar ha'amor b'shirei uzecha Yedei David Mashiach Tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai le'olam ha'yisim v'dor hallelujah Dor v'ador hagid godlecha U'netzat netzachim kedushat kanakdis v'shivchacha Eloheinu v'pinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed Kilmer gadol kadosh ata Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Yale v'yavo. Al hanisim ve'al ha'porkan.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et ha'halel. Hallelujah, hallelujah, de Adonai, hallelujah, Shem Adonai, He Shem Adonai, Baruch v'atav yadonai. Miki mi me'afar da me'ashpot yarim evion. Lahoshivi im nedivei amo. Moshivi akeret habayit im habanim smecha. Hallelujah. B'sheit Yisrael.
Mihi Mitzrayim Beid Yaakov Me'am Loez. Seid Yisrael Mihi Mitzrayim Beid Yaakov Me'am Loez. Ta Yehuda lekodsho Yisrael mamshalotav hayam ravayanos hayarden yisob leachor harim dirkedukelim kevod gibneson malachayam Gitanus Hayarden Kisov leachor Heharim Tirgedu chelim Gevao Kivnetzon
הצור,
ההופכי הצור,
הגם מים,
הגמיים,
חלמים,
חלמים,
למינו
שמיים, למינו מים,
לא לנו אדוני לא לנו כי לשבחה תן כבוד חסדך עמיתך למה יאמרו הגויים איינה אלוהיהם ואלוהינו בשמיים כל אשר חפץ עשה.
Page 134.
כמו ישראל בטח באדוני עזרם ומגנם הוא בית אהרון בטחו באדוני עזרם ומגנם הוא יראה אדוני בטחו באדוני עזרם ומגנם אדוני זכרנו יברך
את בית ישראל, יברך את בית אהרון, יברך יראי אדוני, הם הגדולים, יוסף אדוני עליכם, עליכם ועל בניכם,
ברוכים אתם לאדוני
עושה שמיים והארץ, שמיים לאדוני, והארץ נתן לבני אדם, יהו המתים יהללויה, לכל יודעי דומה, ואנחנו נברך מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
ישמע אדוני את קולי תחנוני את הלך לפני אדוני בארצות החיים האמנתי כי אדבר אני עניתי מאוד אני אמרתי בחוזי כל אדם בחוזי משיב אדוני כל תגלולי עלי כל ששועות עשה
ובשם אדוני אקרא, נדרי אדוני אשלם, נגנה לכל עמו, יקר בעיני אדוני. חסידיו, אדוני כי אני עבדך, אני עבדך בין אמתך, אני עבדך בין אמתך, Shabechu kol ha'omim ki gabar aleinu chasdo be'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki le'olam ki le'olam chasdo Yomana Yisrael ki le'olam ki le'olam chasdo Yomruna Beit Aharon ki le'olam ki le'olam chasdo Yomruna Yirei Adonai ki le'olam ki le'olam chasdo
Min hamitzah karatiya, nalib
Page 136.
Pitkuli, Sharei Tzedek, Avoa Chova, Odeya.
Pitkuli, hey Sharei Tzedek, Avoa Chova,
Odeya. Ze hashar l'Adonai, tzadikim yavovo. Ze hashar l'Adonai, tzadikim yavovo. Decha ki anitani v'atili l'Yeshua. Odecha ki anitani v'atili l'Yeshua. Even masu habonim hayta lerosh bina. Even masu habonim hayta lerosh bina. Meit Adonai hayta zot hi niflat b'einenu. Meit Adonai hayta zot hi niflat b'einenu. Zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismecha bo. Zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismecha bo. Adonai, Hoshiana.
Adonai Hoshiana.
Hoshiana.
Adonai Hoshiana.
Adonai Hatzlichana.
Adonai Hatzlichana.
Hatzlichana.
Adonai Hatzlichana. Baruch
Baruch haba b'shem
Adonai Beraktu Cheni Beit Adonai. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai Beraktu Cheni Beit Adonai. Adonai Erlanu Yishuchad Be'avotim Ad Hakarnotam Mizbeach Adonai Erlanu Yishuchad Be'avotim Ad Hakarnotam Mizbeach Liata Ve'odeka Elohai Aromemeka Liata Ve'odeka Elohai Aromemeka Hodu l'Adonai Gitov Gileolam Chasdo. Hodu l'Adonai Gitov Gileolam
כי לך טוב להודות ולשמך נאה לזמר כי מעולם עד עולם אתה ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מהולל ותשבחו יתגדל שמי רבה
אמן.
חיי דרכו בית ישראל בגלה זמן קריב יאמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך.
יום ומלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביומה ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותון ובתון כל ישראל קודם אבלון וישמעיה ויאמרו
אמן.
שלמה רבה משמעיה לחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל יאמרו
Amen. Shekoyah. All right. Torah service is on page 138. No, it isn't. Yeah, it is. Page 138. It's good to see you.
אין כמו כברוהים אדוני, אין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני
It becomes yours.
אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני עוז ויבוא
I didn't recognize you in the mask.
אדוני יברך
It's
את
so nice to
עמו
see you.
בשלום.
Met me very briefly. Nice to see you.
היטיב ברצונך את
Sion,
דברי
Nechomot, Yerushalayim. Hi, guys. Yes. Good seeing you again. Yerushalayim, Kirbecha lebabatachnu. The Shabbos Vayevin Soharon. Oh. Kuma Adonai ve'yafutzu oivecha ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion teitzei Torah ki mitzion teitzei Torah udevar Adonai miYerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Gedushato. Le'ana rachetz v'lishmei Kadisha Yakira Hana Hemar Tushbechan Be'ana rachetz v'lishmei Kadisha Yakira Hana Hemar Tushbechan Yehi Ravakadamach Detifach Libi Beoraita Betashli Mishalin Delibi Veliba Decholamach Yisrael Abul Chayin Be'elishlam. Amen. Who's carrying the first one? Who's carrying the second one? Oh, this is the serious, the heavy one. Yeah. Who's carrying the third one? Okay. Madison, if you would close the ark, please.
Don't worry, that one's just a
Is that right? Oh. Well, that's not good.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu
Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai HaGedula VeHaGevura VeHaTiferet VeHaNetzach VeHaHod Ki Kol Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz Ki Kol Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz Lecha Adonai HaMamlacha V'haminaseh lechol rosh Romimu, Romimu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu Oh no Lehar I know that you will persevere Romimu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu. Let's go sing it. Yeah. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Eloheinu. The Torah portion today continues the very, very wonderful and exciting and moving story of Joseph and his brothers. It reaches sort of the climax of the story this week, where Joseph plays this trick on his brothers and puts his cup in Benjamin's sack. And next week you have to come back for the exciting conclusion, where Judah throws himself at the mercy of the king and says, "Take me instead." The Torah portion today gets right up to that moment. And of course, because it is Shabbat Hanukkah and Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, we have two other special readings, which is why we have three of our beautiful Sifrei Torah out, which is beautiful. The Torahs are happiest when they are being used. The Parsha can be found on page 265, Genesis, Breshit 43, verse 12, I believe, verse 16? Verse 16. Vayazor vayagen vayoshia lechol achosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol havu goden le'nunu chavod la Torah kohen krav ya'amod. Avram ben Moshe Kalman HaKohen L'Aliyah Rishona Baruch Shenatan Torah L'Emo Yisrael B'Kedushato V'atem Adbekim B'Adonaychem Chaim Kulchem Hayom. Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher bracha banu mikol ha'olamim v'nosan lanu as Toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayar Yosef itam et Binyamin. Vayomer la'asher al beito have et ha'anashim habayta utvavach tevach ve'achen kiti yochelu ha'anashim batzohorayim. Vayas ha'ish ka'asher amar Yosef vayaveh ha'ish et ha'anashim beita Yosef. Vayireu ha'anashim ki huveu beit Yosef vayomeru al devar hakesef hashav be'amtechotenu batechila anachnu muva'im lehitkolel aleinu ulhitnapel aleinu velakach otanu la'avadim ve'et hamoreinu.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher nosan lanu Torah Seves v'chai olam notah b'sochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
In Khan Levi Ta'amod Chana bat Arieleb V'tzipora Miriam L'Aliyah HaShniya. We are on page 265 of verse 19. Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Im Kol Ha'amim Ve'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayigeshu el ha'ish asher al beit Yosef vayedaberu elav petach habayit vayomeru bihi Adoni yaradnu batechila lishbor ochel vayi kivanu el hamalan vaniftecha et amtechotenu והנה חשף איש בפי אמתחתו כספנו במשקלו ונשב אותו בידינו וכסף אחר הורדנו בידינו לשבור אוכל לא ידענו משם כספנו באמתחותינו ויאמר שלום לכם אל תיראו אלוהיכם, אלוהי אביכם, נתן לכם מטמון באמתחותיכם, כספכם בא אלי, ויוצא עליהם את שמעון. ויבא האיש את האנשים ביתה יוסף, וייתן מים, וירחצו רגליהם, וייתן מספוא לחמוריהם. ויכינו את המנחה עד בוא יוסף בצהריים, הישמעו, כי שם יאכלו לחם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. Shabbat shalom. Kodesh tov, Hanukkah Celebration.
Ya ta'amod. Miriam bat Avram Basara Aliyah Hashlishit.
Page 266, verse 26.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torto. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayavo Yosef habayta, vayavi'u lo et hamincha asher beyadam habayta, vayishtachavu lo arza, vayish'al lahem l'shalom, vayomer hashalom, avichem hazaken asher amartem ha'odenu chai. Vayomeru shalom le'avdecha le'avinu odenu chai vayikedu vayishtachavu vayisa enav vayar et binyamin achiv ben imo vayomer hazeh achichem hakaton asher amartem elai Vayomar Elohim yochnecha beni.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Kodesh tov, Hanukkah Celebration.
Page 267, verse 30. Ya'amod. Eliyahu ben Abraham le'aliyah harvit. Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch le'olam ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaymaher Yosef ki nichmeru rachamav el achiv vayvakesh livkot vayavo hachadra vayevk shama vayirchat panav vayetze vayitapak vayomer simu lachem vayasimu lo levado vehem levadam ולמצרים האוכלים איתו לבדם כי לא יוכלון המצרים לאכול את העברים לחם כי תועבה היא למצרים וישבו לפניו הבכור כבכורתו והצעיר כצעירתו ויתמהו האנשים איש אל רעהו ויישא מסות מאת פניו עליהם ותרב מסעת בנימין ממסעות כולם 5 ידות וישתו וישכרו עמו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהים מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Ta'amod. Miriam, Shulamit, Bat Esther, V'chaim le'aliyah ha'chamishit. We'll continue with the 5th aliyah in a moment. First we will pause and include a Misha Berach for the Cholim. As always, I will read the names on our list, and I will pause, and anyone is invited to rise and include other names of those for whom you are praying this morning. Misheberach avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Yivarech v'Rapei et Yonatan ben Etel v'et Zipporah bat Yita v'et Rita Vasquez v'et Rochel bat Rivka v'et Avram ben An vet Leah Nachama bat Rachel, vet Daniel ben Naomi, vet Harry Silverman, vet Liba bat Crandall, vet Perel Basha bat Chia, vet Dov Yosef ben Etta, vet David ben Chava, vet Chava bat Perel, vet Livia Margolit bat Lana Devora, vet Josephine Arkwright, vet David ben Yisrael, vet Roberta Laban, vet Paula Silverman, vet Dan ben Ettel, vet Adina bat Liorit, vet Dan Perlman, vet Steve Oxcassi, vet Yocheved bat Frida, vet Eitan ben Esther, vet Esther bat Bela, vet Mordechai Yosef ben Gita Yaakova, vet Brian Daly, vet Chana Yudit bat Esther, vet Tina Casper, vet Yosef ben Leah, vet Ida Sparano, vet Billy Brandfine, vet Kathy Riley, vet Frank Cowan, vet Chris Cowan, vet Rosanna Manente, vet Phyllis Murphy, vet Julia Granowski, vet Marilyn Cybery. Vet
Aaron ben Abraham, Ben Klein.
Joseph Baditsky.
Mr. Crafton, Margaret Wesley.
Marguerite Riva, but Rivka Chana. Patrick Champ, David Rinenfeld, Brenda Lindbergh, Chanel Weinstein, Zé Maria Sidney Lima.
And anyone joining us online? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Alayam Lachazikam Rapotam Ba'ishlach Lehem Meira Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf B'toch Shar Cholei Yisrael Shabbat Himilizok Refuah Krova Alavo Hashta Bagala Izman Kariv V'nomar Amen. The reading continues, page 268, Breshit 44, verse 1. Baruch Adonai Amvarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher B'cha B'nu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaytzav et asher al beito lemor malei et amtechot ha'anashim ochel ka'asher yuchalun zet v'sim kesef ish b'fi amtachto ve'et gevi'a ha'kesef tasim b'fi amtachat ha'katon ve'et kesef shivro ויעש כדבר יוסף אשר דיבר. הבוקר אור והאנשים שולחו המה וחומריהם. הם יצאו את העיר, לא הרחיקו. ויוסף אמר לאשר על ביתו, קום רדוף אחרי האנשים. והשגתם ואמרת עליהם למה שילמתם רעה תחת טובה הלא זה אשר ישתה אדוני בו והוא ינחש בו הרי אותם אשר עשיתם וישיגם וידבר עליהם את הדברים האלה ויאמרו את הדברים האלה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Shekoah. Number 6. Ta'amod. Anna Malka bat Mendel Aliyah HaShishit. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomeru elav, lama yidaber Adoni, kadvarim ha'ele chalila lavadecha, me'asot kadavar hazeh, ein kesef, asher matzanu befi amtechotenu, heshivonu elecha me'eretz Kenaan, ve'ech nignav מבית אדונך כסף או זהב, אשר יימצא איתו מעבדיך ומת, וגם אנחנו נהיה לאדוני לעבדים. ויאמר גם אתה כדבריכם, כן הוא אשר יימצא איתו יהיה לי עבד, ואתם תהיו נקיים. וימהרו ויורידו איש את אמתחתו ארצה, ויפתחו איש אמתחתו ויחפש בגדול החל ובקטון קהילה, וימצא הגביע באמתחת בנימין, ויקראו סמלותם, ויעמוס איש על חמורו, וישובו העירה, ויבוא יהודה ואחיו בית יוסף, והוא עודנו שם, ויפלו לפניו ארצה. ויאמר להם יוסף, מה המעשה הזה אשר עשיתם? הלא ידעתם כי ינחש איש אשר כמוני. ויאמר יהודה, מה נאמר לאדוני, מה נדבר ומה נצטדק? האלוהים מצא את עוון עבדיך, הננו עבדים לאדוני, גם אנחנו, גם אשר נמצא הגביע בידו. ויאמר חלילה לי מעשות זאת האיש אשר נמצא הגביע בידו, הוא יהיה לי עבד, ואתם עלו לשלום אל אביכם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם, נוטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. אמן. שבת שלום, חודש טוב, חג שמח.
Rise. Ya'amdu Hagmagbia V'Hagolelet L'Sefer Rishon. Torah Asher Shama Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'Yad Moshe.
Ayin, 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 Torah,
Torah, Torah, Torah, Torah, Torah,
Tziva lanu Moshe.
Torah, 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 Torah. seated. The reading for Rosh Chodesh, not the Maftir yet, but the 7th Aliyah, is from Parshat Pinchas. Like all of the special holiday readings, it can be found on page... What's that? The Maftir is the last one. Yeah. I said not the Maftir. Yeah. Not the Maftir. I said not the Maftir, yeah. I think I did. Pretty sure I said not the Maftir. Okay, it's on page 930, verse 9. Bamidbar 28, verse 9. Yeah, Ta'amod. Rachel bar Chaim ve'volav aliyah hashvi'it.
Baruch Adonai Habarach.
Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וביום השבת שני כבשים בני שנה תמימים ושני עשרונים סולת מנחה בלולב השמן ונזכו עולת שבת בשבתו על עולת התמיד ונזכה ובראשי חודשכם תקריבו לאדוני פרים בני בקר שניים ואייל אחד כבשים בני שנה 7 תמימים ושלושה עשרונים סולת מנחה בלולב השמן לפר האחד ושני עשרונים סולת מנחה בלולב השמן לעיל האחד בישרון ישרון סולת מנחה בלולב השמן לכבש האחד עולה ריח ניחוח אישה לאדוני ונזכיהם חצי ההיא יהיה לפר ושלישית ההיא לעיל ורביעית ההיא לכבש יין זאת עולת חודש בחודשו לחודשי השנה ושעיר עזים אחד לחטאת לאדוני על עולת התמיד יעשה ונזכור
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן ישכוח.
Please rise. Ya'amdu ha'magbiyah v'hagolel hagolelet l'sefer sheni. And we hold all of the Sifrei Torah near the stender so that they're all part of the Torahs don't like to be left out. And now we do include Chatzi Kaddish because this is the Maftir.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ילמד דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייך וביומך ובחייך בית ישראל בהגלה בהגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעמוד עמי יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר דקודשה לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה בעלמה ואמרו אמן. זאת התורה אשר שם משה
לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. די 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 and די 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 and די 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 and די 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 המלחמה שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם לזמן הזה היי היי על הניס ועל הגבורות ולהשועות על המלחמה שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם לזמן הזה היי היי על הניס
which is the reading for the 6th day of Hanukkah, can be found on page 808. It is the 6th day of the chieftains of Israel bringing their offerings for the dedication of the first temple, the Mishkan, the first Chanukah Bayit in our illustrious history, but not the last. It's again on page 808, verse 42. Bamidbar 7 to 42. And I'm the mafti. You gotta call me up. Will you be the, Binyamin Yonatan.
Rav Binyamin Yonatan.
Ben Akiva Yitzchak.
Ben Akiva Yitzchak.
Vishoshana.
Vishoshana Maftir.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Bayom hashishi nasi livnei Gad Eliasaf ben Deuel korbano karat kesef achat shloshim umea mishkala mizrak echad kesef 70 shekel v'shekel hakodesh shnehem meleim solet bilulav hashemen lemincha kaf achat 10 zahav melea ketoret par echad ben bakar ayil echad keves echad ben shnato leola seir izim echad lechatat uzevach hashelamim bakar shnayim elim chamisha atudim chamisha kevasim bnei shana chamisha ze korban Eliasaf ben Deuel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chai olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yamdu hamakbir b'hagolel et zifir shlishi. Please rise. Okay. Zot HaTorah asher Moshe
that one gets held by Jack. If there's nowhere to put a Torah, it needs to be held. A Torah, like a child, often needs to be held. They need to just be comforted. They don't cry. Well, I don't know. If you drop, well, the only thing worse than dropping a baby is dropping a Torah. But it's not even really that close. But yeah, no, yes, people always held them. Yeah. No, there are a lot of shuls you always hold them. Yeah. The Haftarah for the first Shabbat of Chanukah is from the book of Zechariah. The Miketz almost always falls during Hanukkah, and just beforehand, Rabbi Shargel was telling me that it's only like a couple of times a century that we read Miketz not during Hanukkah. And when was the last one? Rabbi, do you remember? Last year. So if you missed it, I wasn't a shows up. I wasn't a pulpit rabbi during last year, so it was like I was less tapped into that. So if you missed it last year, you might not, I'm sorry to say, it might be a long wait to read Haftarah Miketz, but the Haftarah for the first Shabbat of Chanukah is from the book of Zechariah. It recounts the return of the first exiles from the first Babylonian exile and the creation of the temple, and it's on page 1270 in your Humashim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo v'yamed b'tzedek. Rani b'simchi b'tzion ki nivah v'shachanti b'tochech ne'um Adonai nilvu goyim rabim el Adonai b'yom ha'u v'ayu li laham v'shachanti b'tochech v'yadat ki Adonai tzavot shelachani elahich v'nachal Adonai et Yehuda chelko al admat hakodesh u'v'acharov Yerushalayim Has kol basar mipnei Adonai ki nehar mimon kodsho vayareni et Yeshua kohen agadol omed lifnei malach Adonai v'asatan omed al yamino lesidno vayomer Adonai el azadan yigar Adonai b'cha azadan v'yigar Adonai b'cha Havocher b'Yishalayim alo zeh ud mutzahal me'esh v'Yoshua hayaluvash bigadim etzohim v'omed lifnei malach v'yanyo v'yomar alo medim lefanav lemor hasiru v'gadei matzohim me'alav v'yomer elav re'eh varti me'alecha onecha abonecha והלבשותך מחלצות והמוהר ישימו הצניב טהור על ראשו וישימו הצניב הטהור על ראשו וילבישו בגדים ומלאך אדוני עומד ויד מלאך אדוני ביהושע לאמור B'Yoshua lemor, Kamar Adonai Tzavot, im bidrachai telech, ve'im mishmarti tishmor, ve'gam ata tadin et beiti, ve'gam tishmor et chatzirahai, ve'natati lecha malachim. Amen. Haomedim ha'ele Shemana Yoshua Kohen Agadol Ataha Ve'recha Hayoshevim Lefanecha Ki Anshe Mofet Hema Ki Hineni Mevi Et Abdi Tzemach Ki Nea Ben Asher Natati Lifnei Yoshua Aleven Achad Shiva Einayim Hineni Mifateach Pitucha Neum Adonai Tzvaot Umashti et avon haaretz hahi b'yom echad b'yom ha'on Adonai tzevaot tikru ish l'rehu El tachat gefen ve'el tachat te'ena vayashov malach adover bihi vayireheni k'ish asher ye'or mishnato vayomer elahai mataroeh v'amar iti v'hine menorat zahav kula v'gula rosha v'shiva neroteha alea v'shiv'aha mutzakod lenerot asher al rosha ושניים זיתים עליה אחד ממין עגולה ואחד על שמאלה והען והמחר אל המלאך הדובר בי לאמור מה אלה אדוני ויען המלאך הדובר בי ויאמר אלי הלא ידעת מה הם האלה ואמר לא אדוני ויען ויאמר אלי לאמור זה דבר אדוני אל זרובבל לאמור לא בחיל ולא בכוח כי ברוחי אמר אדוני צבאות מעתה הגדול לפני זרובבל למישור להוציא את האבן הראשה תשועות הן כן לה ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל עמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ונאמנים דבריך ודבר אחד מדבריך אחור לא ישוב ריקם כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו ורחם על ציון כי בית חיינו וללבד נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון ובניה שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו ביהוה נביא עבדך ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו על קישו ישב זר ולא ינחלו רחמים את כבודו כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו שלא יכבני לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד על הדוריו ועל עבדיו ועל נמים על יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. And we return to the Siddur on page 148. יקום פורקן מן שמיה חינא בחיסתא ורחמים ברחמים מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב שר רבקה רחל וליה ויברך את כל הקהל הקודש הזה עם כל קהילות הקודש הם ובניהם ובנותיהם וכל אשר להם ומי שמייחדים בתי כנסיות לתפילה ומי שבאים בתוכם להתפלל ומי שנותנים נר למור ויין לקידוש להבדלה מופד לאורחים וצדקה לעניים וכל מי שעוסקים בצורכי ציבור ובעניין ארץ ישראל באמונה הקדוש ברוך הוא ישלם שכרם ויסיר מהם כל מחלה וירפא לכל גופם ויסלח לכל עוונם וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם עם כל ישראל אחיהם ונאמר Amen. We'll continue the prayer for our country on page 148. Please rise. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony. to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say Amen. And a prayer for the state of Israel on page 149. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael Begoalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reishmitz Kmiat Kulatenu, Hagein Aleya Be'avrat Chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'amidcha Leroshea, Sareya V'yotzea, V'taknem Be'etza Tova Milfanecha, Chazek et Yidei Megin Eretz Kodshenu, V'anchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, V'ateret Nitzachon Te'atrem, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'simchat Olam Liyoshveya, V'nomar Amen. I just want to say before we continue with Asher, you may be seated. I was talking with Shelley. It's so wonderful to see you guys here, by the way. Welcome back. Not for the first time, but for the first time in a while. Shelley and I were talking earlier in the week. I know and I knew this before, but I know again there's been some history to what exactly. Gloria wrote a beautiful prayer for our country, and there's been some history to what we've done around this. When we were getting back into the building, I think originally when I started, we were sort of very conscious of sort of making it short and kind of simple, and but there was no kavanah other than that. So if at the next ritual committee meeting, we'll review a little bit which constellations of prayers for our country and whatever we want to use in light of that history. And so if you have feelings about that, please share them with me, or come to the ritual committee meeting, or the religious practice committee meeting, which is always open to everyone. So just want to make that a quick public service announcement. And thank you to Shelley for raising that again. We'll continue with Ashrei on page 151. Ashrei Yoshrei V'Techa Yalucha Sela Shem Shekachala Shem Zilat Adonai Yedaber Pi V'Yarecha Basar Shem Kotzker Rebbe Va'ed Va'anachnu Nebarech Ya Me'ata V'Yad Olam Hallelujah. Please rise. The Torahs go back in reverse order. So there's the second. And who's taking the first? You want to take it? Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki nizgav Shemo levado, Hodo ha'eretz v'shamayim, V'yaharem keren li'amo, Tila lechol chasidav, Livnei Yisrael am kirobo. Hallelujah. David, Havul Adonai Bnei Adonai Kavod V'Hoz, Havul Adonai Kivod Shemo, Yishlach Havul Adonai Behadrat Kodesh. El HaKavod Yirim Adonai Al Ma'im Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'Koach, Kol Adonai Behadar, Kol Adonai Shover Arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et Arsei Halvanon, Vayarkidem Kemo Egel Lebanon Besiryon, Kemo Ben Reimim, Kol Adonai Chotzev Lamotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yechol El Hayarod, Vayachzov Yerod Uvechalo, Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai Lamabuya, Shavayeh Shem Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Le'amo ki al tazovu eitz chayim hi lema chazikim ba v'tom echeha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu What's that? We got stuff before that. Yeah, we do have announcements. Yeah. No, don't worry, we got it. Good Shabbos. Chag Sameach. Happy Hanukkah. As I said earlier, Parshat Miketz almost always falls during Hanukkah, almost always, and so it's been something of a rabbinic sport for a couple thousand years or so, about sort of finding the connections between the two. And there are many, actually, sort of very rich and wonderful connections, I think, between the Joseph story in general and the story of Hanukkah, primarily finding light in dark places, which is what Joseph does repeatedly and what Hanukkah is about, both spiritually and also calendrically, as the days Shabbos came really, really early. As those of you know who try to light candles right on time, it comes really, really early this time of year, and the days are really getting shorter. So we light more candles to bring some light. I want to open by telling a story about Miketz, but also about the Kotzker Rebbe, an important 19th century Hasidic Rebbe, and he was a busy guy, and he had, like all big Hasidic Rebbes, he had sort of a Hasidic court where he has his followers, and he had a shamash. He sort of, you couldn't just walk in to see the Rebbe. You had to get through a few layers of shamashim. And one winter, his brother comes to see him, and his brother is quite sick, and he wants the Rebbe, his brother, to pray for him. And so he walks into the Rebbe's, the area where the Rebbe's studying, his shtibel or his house, and the shamash is there, and says, "Excuse me, what are you here for?" He says, "Well, I want to see the Rebbe." He says, "Well, you can't just, walk in to see the Rebbe. There's a lot of people who want to see the Rebbe. You have to wait." And he says, "Well, listen, I'm his brother. Go in and tell them that his brother is here." And the shamash kind of rolls his eyes, but he schleps himself up from his Gemara, and he goes in, and he knocks on the Rebbe's door, and he closes the door behind him. And a couple minutes later, he comes back and says, all Jews are his brother. You have to wait. And so his brother's troubled by this. But he decides to wait. He wants to see his brother. He's sick, and he wants to see his brother. And so eventually, about 2 hours later, the Kotzker Rebbe comes out, and he sees him there. And as the Kotzker Rebbe is sort of walking out the door, he taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, And the Kotzker Rebbe looks at him and says, "Well, okay, why are you here?" And he says, "Well, I'm sick. I'd like you to pray for me." And the Kotzker Rebbe says, "Okay, just tell me your mother's name." His brother is sort of astounded and upset by this, and says, "How can you not know Mom's name?" And the Kotzker Rebbe says, and this is a strange response, which doesn't make him look particularly good, and I think none of this story makes him look particularly good. He says, "I don't even know the bone in my own shoulder blade." how would I know the name of your mother? And the commentary on this story doesn't really let the Kotzker Rebbe off the hook. And they cite a verse from Parshat Miketz about how Joseph, remember, his brothers are standing before him, and says the brothers don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And think about the context of this. So Joseph is a very, very busy person, right? He's responsible for all of Egypt, and there are thousands of people, presumably, coming every day to ask him for food and to ask him for assistance, and he's a really huge, very big deal. Right? He's not Pharaoh, but he's like, the secretary of, I don't know what the cognate position is. It's a very big deal. And his brothers come among these throngs and throngs of people. And still he recognizes them. And the commentary on this little tale says, well, the Kotzker Rebbe reached the level of the brothers who could not recognize Joseph. But Joseph actually reached a higher level where he could recognize that he was responsible for everyone, but that he still knew his brothers, even in the midst of all of that. Which is a powerful and important lesson. So pivoting for a moment, and I promise it's going to relate, Bezrat Hashem. One of the central themes in the American Hanukkah experience, for as long as I've been alive, and I think probably for as long as there has been an American Hanukkah experience, is how and to what extent and in what way Hanukkah becomes captive to the inexorable gravitational pull of the Christian and secular holiday season. And how exactly that works and how exactly that feels. This was a big theme in my childhood. And I grew up around a lot of Jews. I didn't go to a Jewish day school, and so I went into school, but I grew up around a lot of Jews, and still, it was a big theme in my childhood. The fact that I would walk into the front lobby of my school, and there was a Christmas tree. At a very progressive, heavily Jewish, private school in Chicago. That felt a certain way. And it was a really, really major thing, I think, in my childhood. When the Hanukkah episodes first came on, right? The first Hanukkah Rugrats was a very seminal moment in my childhood. It really was. It really was. It was one of the first times that I remember seeing myself depicted on something that was for the Goyim. Right? It wasn't for Jews. It wasn't on, the Jewish channel. It was on Nickelodeon. It was a big deal for me. And one of the central questions in Jewish life, I think, over the past 500 years, and it is a question that I believe truly does await a satisfactory answer, is where can the Jew stand in the modern world? Okay? And I explored this a little bit if you came to one of the theology classes. But where can the Jew stand in the modern world? Or, putting it into the language of the Kotzker story, right? How do you hold two simultaneous and contradictory truths? Right? The truth that, on the one hand, all people are fundamentally our brothers and sisters, and on the other hand, I, Ben Resnick, actually only have two sisters. I actually only have two sisters. And I actually only have two kids. And believe me when I say, as much as I love you, and as much as I love the world, I love them more. And I would gladly burn it all down for their sake. How do we hold these two things? And the story of Hanukkah, maybe the story of Joseph as well, but the story of Hanukkah holds these two truths in, I think, a very, very profound and important and deep way. And in order to understand that, you need to understand a little bit about the real story of Hanukkah, not just the story we tell. Everyone knows the story we tell about how the temple was destroyed and the Maccabees liberated it and everything was impure except for one little cruse of oil. I've never known in English what a cruse actually is. I think it's a little container, a little vial of oil with the stamp of the Kohen Gadol. And it was only supposed to burn for 1 day, and lo, it burned for 8 days. And the point of that story is to answer the question of how much Jews can be pulled towards the non-Jewish world, how much the lure of the universal is something to which we are supposed to succumb or even embrace. And the answer given by that story is rather emphatic, and the answer is no. The answer is no. We cannot include in Jewish worship outside influences, foreign symbols. No, no, no. That is the answer. But the history of Hanukkah is actually much more complex. And bear with me for a moment, because this is something I truly believe all Jews should know, and many do not. The history of Hanukkah is much more complex, and it starts, I'm going to start it not at the beginning, but sort of in the middle, because good Jewish stories start right there in the middle, about this machloket, this disagreement between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, these ancient rabbinic houses, about how exactly you're supposed to light your Hanukkah lamps. By the way, ner, lahadlik ner means lamp, not candle, which is why there are tshuvot in the medieval world about whether or not you can use candles, this newfangled invention, to light your Shabbat and Hanukkah lamps. And they say you can't. But when the Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, they're talking about these little Roman fragile oil lamps. And there's a machloket between them about how you light on Hanukkah. Beit Shammai says on the 8th day, you light 8. There it is. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go down. So on the last night, you light 1. Beit Hillel says the opposite. On the first night, you light 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, so on, and 8. And the Gemara gives reasons behind these different ideas. What's going on? What undergirds this machloket? And they say, well, Beit Shammai says it resembles something about Sukkot, that you would give 13 bulls on the first day, and then 12, and then 11, and so on and so forth. And Beit Hillel says, or the Gemara says about Beit Hillel, okay, you ma'alin b'kodesh ve'ein moridim. You always ascend in holiness, multiplying light. So beautiful. But don't descend. But where does lamp lighting come from? How does it enter into the Hanukkah story? Because that story I told about the little vial of oil is written 500 or 600 years after the Maccabean revolt. And if you read the book of Maccabees, what do you find? You find a story about desperate guerrilla fighters who we are told could not celebrate Sukkot at its proper time, because at Sukkot time they were in the mountains living in caves fighting like wild animals, says the second book of Maccabees. And so at Hanukkah time, when they liberated the temple, they sang sings of praise. And they took up their lulavim and they waved them as they purified the temple and did nothing about lighting lights. Yeah, it's amazing, right, Julia? It's amazing. It's not until 200 years later that Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai have this machloket. But where did the lighting come from? Well, to understand that story, you have to understand another story. Lots of stories flying around today about a young boy who is born in the South. And Grandpa converted to Judaism, but his father is maybe a Nabatean, and he grows up. Very little is known about his childhood, except that he must have been powerfully ambitious. And he grows up, and young Herod same Herod who appears in the Gospels, same Herod who's mentioned in the Mishnah. Young Herod the Great eventually rises to be the Roman governor of Judea. This person of really, really incredible ambition, an enormous diplomatic talent, who had a very complex sense of himself in the world, a very complex and hyphenated sense of identity. He was both Jewish, sort of, and he was Nabatean, sort of, and he was Roman, sort of. And his whole life is characterized by trying to walk in multiple worlds, trying to be at once a Roman governor and a faithful a recipient of Jewish tradition. And he tried to combine all of these into one person, into one life, which, as we all know, is very complicated work. Because on some level, it's what we are all doing right here, right now, because we have made our lives in this place. And he said, what am I going to do? Well, Romans like when there's a big temple in a city. You know, like Rome. A city that befits the Eastern Empire has a glorious temple. And the Jews have this thing where they like to have a temple too. So I'm going to construct a grand new renovation project. We're going to build a new sanctuary. And think back when you were doing that as well. We're going to build this place. And the Romans are going to love me because I made a beautiful temple for Rome. And the Jews are going to love me because I'm going to tell the Jews the temple for the Jews. And if you're going to have a temple, you're going to have to do a Hanukkah Celebration. You're going to have to dedicate it. And Herod knows, because he's a Roman, that around wintertime, when the temple happened to be completed, the wall of which still stands, which is the wall in which we put our prayers, Herod knows that around wintertime in Rome, there's a lamp-lighting festival called Saturnalia. And he also knows that the Jews have this history that 200 years ago, where there were these Maccabees, and they liberated the temple and rededicated it. So he says, I'm going to have a Chanukah Tabayit. It's going to be Yemei Herod, the days of Herod, and we are going to dedicate the temples, rededicate the temple in honor of the Jews. And we are going to include some lamplighting in honor of the Romans. And how do you celebrate Saturnalia? Well, Saturnalia leads up to the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year and the birthday of the sun. And so figuratively, as the days are getting shorter, you light one more lamp each day in the leading up to the solstice. 1 on the first night, 2 on the second night, 3 on the third, and so on. And then therefore, on the darkest day of the year, you light the most lamps, and then you ignite the sun. And the day gets longer. Right? And so almost certainly, the background of the disagreement between Hillel and Shammai is actually a question about how, if we Jews are going to persist with this lamplighting thing, how much like the Romans can we be? Right? You can imagine, like, Shammai's kid come and say, Daddy, it's Saturnalia. You know, can we light the when we got Hanukkah, let's do it the same way. And Shammai says, no. And you can imagine Hillel's kid saying, Daddy, can we please, all my friends, do Saturnalia? Can we do something similar? And Hillel says yes. And it's a rich, rich irony, because the story that later develops around Hanukkah is all about the answer being no. That's what the whole story is about, how different we are. And over history, Jews have gone blue in the face, screaming about how different we are in the context of our winter lamplighting festival. But the ritual itself, and as you all know, none of you, I hope, lit 8 candles on the first night and 7 on the second. All of us follow Beit Hillel. And so the history of Hanukkah preserves this magnificent tension, which can be a productive tension. It is no coincidence that all lamplighting festivals, Diwali and Chanukah and Sadev, the Zoroastrians, and Christmas, because Jesus was born in the spring, according to scholars, could not escape the gravitational pull of the winter lamplighting festivals, because it's a deeply human need to kindle lights in places that are dark, which is what Joseph taught us and what Hillel taught us, and what even Shammai taught us. We have this human need to light up lights in dark places. And the point here, of course, is not that we obliterate religious difference with syncretic maneuvering. I certainly don't, and will never have a Hanukkah bush in my house. And I will tell you, though, that as a father, I have lost the battle over Halloween and Hanukkah presents, which I did not get growing up, really. I've lost those battles in my house. I will say I don't feel great about the fact that I have lost those battles. But nonetheless, I think it's important to recognize that a holiday like Hanukkah, which is so forthrightly about group self-definition and Jewish difference, also beats with this deep vein thrum of the universalist impulse to light up a fragile little lamp when it is the coldest, dafka, and when it is the darkest, dafka. I think that Hanukkah truly does and can remind us, in light of all of this, that we can rise beyond the level of the brothers who don't recognize Joseph. And we can rise beyond the level of the Kotzker Rebbe, who in the context of his commitments to everyone else doesn't even remember his mother's name. We can rise to a higher level. And we can see ourselves simultaneously as actors on a great stage, as orot legoyim, as lights onto the nations responsible for all mankind, and for every hungry person that graces our doorstep, and for every person wandering in darkness in need of light. We can be responsible and responsive to them. And at the same time, we can remember that our brothers are our brothers, and that nothing can ever change that.
Musaf, page 155, please rise, if you're able. Julia is not. Julia's exempt.
It's still. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi. V'yalma divrach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayechonu yomechonu v'chayechonu Yisrael. Yibarak v'yishtabak v'yipar v'yiramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha v'eila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nefechata damiran v'yalma v'imru.
Page 166.
Or 166b.
Yes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah El Hagadol HaGibor HaNorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Ve'Konei HaKol V'zocher chasdei avot u'mivi goel evnei b'nei Ham Aman shemo v'yahava Melech ozer poked u'mashiach u'magin Baruch atah Adonai Magin Avraham Poked Sarah Tagibor le'olam Adonai Mechayei mitim atarav lehoshia Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechayei metim berachim Zomech novim verafech oholim Umatir asurim Umekayeh emunato lishenei afar Michamocha be'al giburot Umido mehelah Melech mimi Umechayeh Umasmiach Yeshua V'ne'emanat al-chayot metim Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hametim Naritzecha V'nakdishcha Kesod Siach Sarfei Kodesh Hakdishim Shimcha B'Kodesh Hakahatu Hayad Nevi'echa B'Kara Zel Zeviyah Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Sabaoth Al-Quran's Kibadom Haleolam Shar Tav Sholim Zelazeh Ayeh Mekom Kibadol Yamatam Baruch Yomei Baruch Adonai, Baruch Adonai, Mim Komo, Mim Komo Hu Yivim Barachamim Yachonam HaMechadim Shemo Eroker B'Chol Yom Tamid Ba'amayim B'Yava Shema Omri Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu Moshienu Vehu Yashmienu Verachama Shenid Shenid Leinei Kol Chai Liot Lachem Le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem U'v'direi Chachakha Katuv Le'mor O Kanai L'olam L'hayik Tzion L'dor Vador Hallelujah L'dor Vador Nagid God Lechol Netzach Netzachim Kedushatcha Nakdish V'shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu L'yomosh L'olam Va'ed Ki El Melech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai El HaKadosh.
Page 168.
It's our time. Shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen v'imru amen. Yikar v'kar Hashem me'rabah v'yalmad yirach yortei v'yom echmachuteh b'chayei chonu v'yom echon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael v'agala uzman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam u'me'amaya Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipoar v'yiramam v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yital shemei d'kedusha le'elam mikol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'yalma v'yimeru Tikabel tzolot hon v'hon d'chol Yisrael kanava v'hon d'vishmaya v'yimeru Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We'll do this to Sivivon. Enk Eloheinu, Enk Adonenu, Enk Malkeinu, Enk Mosheinu, Mich Eloheinu, Mich Adonenu, Mich Malkeinu, Mich Mosheinu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Mosheinu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Mosheinu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Mosheinu, Atahu Shekdiro, Avoteinu, Lefanach Ketoret Hasaminu. Page 183. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei kedula l'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'vayeh haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishukot ha'adama, shelo samchachinu k'vahem v'gor aleinu k'chol ha'olam, anachnu korim u'mishtachachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz Moshe Vikaro Bashamayim Mima'al Shchina Tuzo Shchina Tuzo Begov He Merahomim Hu Eloheinu Eino Hem Emakenu Efesulato Kakatu B'Torato V'Adatayom V'Adatayom
Ve'hashivota
Levavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim V'Shamayim Imah V'Yaaretz V'Yaaretz Mitachadinu Okay, Nicole Hanukkah Shaddai Pelham Sorry, Kakatu b'Toratecha Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed Haya Adonai Melech HaKol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad U'Shema
This week we observe the Yartzeichen of Esther Baker, mother-in-law of John Baker, Jonathan Metzke, brother-in-law of Suzanne Wise, and also Yetta P. Kavel and Leonora Simcha, who are memorialized on our board. May their memories and the memories of all those whom we recall be blessings. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 184. Yitzgadal v'yitzgadash shemei rabbah. Amen. Be'alma divra kirutei v'yanlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'gala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah barach le'olam le'olam maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitromam v'yinaseh. V'tadar v'talei v'talal shmei d'kudsha rivu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mrumav, hu yasei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We'll add, before concluding the psalm for Rosh Chodesh, which can be found on page 78. Rabalav Sichi Enochi Esmach Adonai Tamuchadei Min Haaretz V'Shem Orenam Baruchi Nafshi Adonai Hallelujah. We also include one more recitation of Mizmor Shir Chanukah Habayit LeDavid on page 81, which introduces Yekod HaShachar every week and every day, but is also the psalm for Chanukah. Page 81. Mizmor Shir Chanukah Habayit LeDavid. Include Mourner's Kaddish once more on page 82. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam v'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei. Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei, Kusha, Leila, Nikol, Birchata, Bashirata, Tushbechata, V'nechemata, Damiran, Be'alma, V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shalama, Rabbamin, Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Osei Shalom, V'imromav, Hu Yasei Shalom, Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. I'd like to invite our president, David Haft, up to make announcements. Join me online tonight for the game show. 6:30. Sign up.
Who is the current game show champion?
Thank you.
This guy. There's a guy. Yeah, there is. I will tell you.
Okay, Boker Tov, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. First off, I want to thank our Kiddush sponsor. That's Bob Kahn and Andrea DeRosa Kahn. Thank you very much. They all came just because they knew there was a Kiddush. So that's great. We have also a community-wide Hanukkah celebration. That's tomorrow night or evening. I guess it gets dark so early. At 4:30 outside, rain or shine. The community is invited. Hopefully we'll see some other members here. And we're going to serve light refreshments. I think there's going to be some hot cocoa and, of course, donuts. We have adult education. There's coming up lunch and learn, Chug, starting on Wednesday via Zoom. And that is at noon, right? On Wednesdays, yes. You got to be paying attention. Okay. And there's 2 more sessions of it, December 7th and 14th. Oh, Jewish Theology is December 7th and 14th. That's at 7:30, and that's definitely present in person. We have a save the date for the book group. That is December 12th at 11 a.m. in the library. I believe that's a Sunday. And we're going to have the author here, Jordan Salama, who will be signing books for those who have them.
Come at 10:30 if you want your book signed, and to sort of start a little bit earlier because Jordan has a pressing engagement.
Okay. So let's move that up to 10:30. Okay. There's a soup kitchen, which of course is managed by Jill Goldenberg, coming up on December 16th. She asked for volunteers. If you know how to make sloppy joes, rice and cookies, please contact her, and she can use your help. We're still, of course, trying to finish up the High Holiday campaign, raise a few more shekels. If you haven't pledged, please consider making a pledge now. Every little bit helps.
And it's a great season to do it, the season of dedication.
Right. We just rededicated the sanctuary. And we have also the Scholar Stream program, which is free of charge. You got to look at weekly announcements for that. All you have to do is register and show up. Also, one more thing I wanted to announce. We are going to have a First Friday on January 7th. It's being sponsored by myself, so I expect you all to be there. Okay? Come hungry, and we'll make sure you have a nice Shabbat dinner, and of course a nice service. Anything else I haven't mentioned?
Yes, next week it's a Shabbat Mishpacha, so we'll be starting like the last Shabbat Mishpacha. Everyone will start at 10. It'll be a service geared at families, but hopefully everyone can find something there. It'll be slightly abbreviated, but also you have an opportunity to daven and say Kaddish, and so please come for that and support our Learning Center.
And there's one thing I forgot. The Kiddush is sponsored in honor of Bob's 72nd anniversary of his bar mitzvah.
Wow.
Mazel tov, 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 simcha tov. Yehelanu, 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 Uvekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvekol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Uvekol Yisrael.
Jeremy, take us
So
home.
lucky. Jeremy and I are going to lead. Okay, this is from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It fits beautifully to Adon Olam, and so you guys have to be, you guys can sing everything, but you guys also have to be the children's choir, the part, okay? So, page 187. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'ed Nasa B'chepso Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra V'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hove V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'yein Sheni Aleham Shilo Lehachbira B'li Reishi B'li Tachlit Ha-B'lo Ha-Oz V'ha-Misra V'hu Eli V'chai Go'ali V'tzor Chebli V'yetzara V'hu Nisi Umanos Li Menad Kosi B'yom Egra Abiyado Avkin Ruchi Be'heit Ishan Be'aira Ve'him Ruchi Geviati Adonai Li